Good afternoon, everyone. Chief Madera Ordondo of the Minneapolis Police Department. I first want to just introduce distinguished public safety officials here today. Commissioner Harrington, Department of Public Safety, Colonel Langer of the State Patrol, Sheriff Hutchinson from Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, General Mankey of our Minnesota National Guard, Chief Ed Frizzell, Metro Transit Police Department, Chief Tyner of the Minneapolis Fire Department, Colonel Smith from our Minnesota DNR, and also Commander Gerlicher, Minneapolis Police Department. So thank you all for being here today, this afternoon. Over the next few minutes, you're going to hear about the preparation and planning for our region's safety for the upcoming trials to begin this March. One of the things that we are so very fortunate here in the state of Minnesota is that when it comes to public safety and when it comes to a need for assistance, Minnesota comes together. Our National Guard, our county, our local, and our state resources, we come together with the primary responsibility of keeping all our communities safe. And while we will focus on prevention, and you'll hear more about that in the upcoming remarks, it is also very important that we ensure for everyone's constitutionally protected First Amendment right to gather and demonstrate peacefully. As Minneapolis Police Chief, and certainly the focus and concentration will be in and around our downtown plaza corridor. The mere fact of the matter is that this will be a unified command. It will allow all of us to be able to respond metro and region-wide if needed. And it will allow great cooperation, coordination, and communication. And so, thank you again for being here. And at this time, I'd like to bring up Sheriff Hutchinson from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Chief, and thanks for coming. I'm going to talk briefly about what the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office's main role is going to be, and of course that is going to be court security. Our job is to ensure the integrity of the court proceedings and the safety of everybody who's a part of it. Our deputies are some of the best in the nation and the most professional you'll find. And they're highly trained. We've done thousands of high-profile cases, and we've managed to have a good job from that. We've been planning this for months. We're ready to protect property, employees, and the citizens of Hennepin County. I also make a nice note of, I'm very grateful for our law enforcement partners. It's important to note, like the Chief said, it's a unified command. We're in this together, and I would like to thank Chief Axel from St. Paul and Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher for offering their support as well. We're going to take a measured approach. We're going to adapt and respond to different areas with different resources on a minute or hourly basis. I'm confident together we can ensure the court proceedings take place with no disruption. Again, we're not going to allow disruption. I think that needs to be pointed out. The court needs to go on. We all want to see justice served. In order for that to happen, everybody needs to respect the process. Let our deputies do their jobs, which is keep the people safe, so the courts can do their job. We're asking for expressions of free speech are respectful and lawful. I think that's important to note again, respectful and lawful. We want to protect everybody's rights, but if you cause harm, if you break things, burn things, hurt people's livelihood, I'm here to say you will go to jail. We will arrest everybody who breaks the law. We're not going to tolerate disorder. But it's important to note, we're in this to make sure the process goes on like it should. And it's with great honor I introduce our next guest, who's the best, Colonel Langer.
Thanks, Sheriff, for the introduction. My name is Matt Langer, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as Colonel of the Minnesota State Patrol. And my task this afternoon is just to outline this plan called Operation Safety Net. Operation Safety Net is a unified command approach to prevention and response during the Chauvin trial. The mission is twofold. First, to preserve and protect lawful First Amendment nonviolent protests and demonstrations. We want that to occur. And the second is to prevent large-scale violent civil disturbances, assaultive actions, property damage, fires, and looting to government buildings, businesses, and critical infrastructure, which is what we're here to prevent. The planning for this operation occurred starting back in July. It occurred in earnest all summer long, both on the east side of the river with St. Paul and Ramsey County and surrounding jurisdictions, and on the west side of the river with Minneapolis Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and surrounding jurisdictions. About a month ago, there was a full-time coordination team that was established, embedded with the Minneapolis Police Department, to include the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the Minnesota National Guard, members from the Minnesota State Patrol, Metro Transit Police Department, and the Department of Public Safety, Homeland Security, and Emergency Management. If we go to the next slide. We've organized ourselves around our phases. We're in phase one right now, which is the planning and preparation phase prior to the jury selection beginning. Phase two is when jury selection and the actual trial begins. Phase three is when closing arguments commence and the jury begins their deliberations, which will result in a verdict. And then phase four being demobilization and a reduction in staffing. And you can see phase three, in the interest of full disclosure and transparency for the community, phase three is when you will see the bulk of the resources being deployed. It doesn't mean that there won't be resources present during phase two and certainly during phase four, but phase three is when they will see the full deployment of law enforcement and the National Guard. Next slide. When I talk about the preventative posture that the planning coordination team have been working on in earnest for many months, it's surrounded around some tenets. The first being property protection detail. Of high interest, of course, is the protection of key business corridors throughout the city. Next is critical infrastructure protection detail. Protecting key government buildings and infrastructure is an important task for law enforcement and the Minnesota National Guard. Fire and EMS security, ensuring that fire and EMS crews can quickly and safely respond across the city and the metropolitan area to get to calls for medical service or calls for fire service is critical. Police precinct security detail will be put in place to protect the city's police department and the police precincts, and tactical traffic control to assure safety for pedestrians and the officers and others that will be working on these preventative resources. I should add that these are in no particular priority order. They're all equally important. The next slide articulates response resources. These are the resources that are going to be specifically dedicated toward keeping the mission in mind, that the First Amendment rights are protected and that the other destructive behaviors cannot occur. So the response resources include mobile field forces, quick reaction teams able to move quickly and swiftly to areas that take longer than a mobile field force can afford to respond to, bicycle rapid response teams for the same reason, booking and processing teams, SWAT and tactical teams, and in the event that it's necessary, bomb detection teams and explosive teams will be ready to respond as needed as well. The operational command structure, as you've heard, is unified command, and that can be a class in and of itself. But when you see all the patches listed on this slide, these are the agencies that have come together and agreed to operate under a unified command model. That means that the primary jurisdiction still has the responsibility for what occurs within that jurisdiction, but it also means that multiple voices are around that table, providing input, providing discussion, subject matter expertise, and the resources that they can bring to bear to safely prevent, and if not prevent, respond to whatever happens in that jurisdiction. Unified command team by nature is cooperative, it's collaborative, and it's a really important function of the Operation Safety Net plan. The next question that comes up often is mutual aid assistance. We have called under the Unified Command Planning Team, have called for assistance from other agencies across Minnesota, and those responses have not gone unheard. And the coordinating team, specifically in Minneapolis with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the State Patrol, and the other agencies involved, continue to cultivate that mutual aid response that we know is necessary to safely get the community through this period of time in our state's history. Last slide. You'll see a list of a couple of categories that we've coined: encouraged activities and unlawful activities. And this is just trying to get everyone on the same page, members of the community, law enforcement community, the media, elected officials, around some key concepts of behaviors that we are saying are encouraged and behaviors that we are saying are unlawful and will land you in trouble should you choose to partake in those activities. That said, I have the honor of introducing the Commissioner of Public Safety for the state of Minnesota, Commissioner John Harrington.
Thanks, Colonel Langer. Thanks, Chief Ordondo. And I really do want to thank Commander Gerlicher, who started this planning effort back in July, because it was really important for us to take a page out of history and learn some lessons from both recent history here in the Twin Cities, but also to look at the experiences of places like LA and Ferguson, where court trials have come, gone, and where civil disturbances, protests, and riots have been the result. We're committed as part of the Unified Command to learn from history and not repeat it. We believe that if we do this the right way, and I really am incredibly impressed by the level of planning, the level of commitment that we have already received, that we will be able to prevent bad things from happening. And while we're there to prevent riots, destruction of property, personal injury, attacks on others, we are there absolutely to keep our commitment that each one of us has taken an oath to do, to protect the Constitution and support the Constitution. And that means that First Amendment right to be heard and to freely assemble has to also be guaranteed. And so it's a balancing act as we do both of those things. And it's not a one or an other, it's a both and. We have to make sure that people's voices can be heard. I can tell you from the experience of last year that in the midst of the riots, in the midst of the fires, in the midst of all that thing, the people's voices who really want to call out the death of George Floyd could not be heard over the vitriol and over the activity of folks that were there to destroy property and to hurt other people. This Unified Command is, I think, absolutely the right place, the right time, and it is a planful approach that I think really has the best chance of being successful. It's planful in two ways. One, it is pulling resources together. Governor Wallace often uses the phrase, one Minnesota. I think this is really an example of one Minnesota. We are all in this together. Whether you are from greater Minnesota and you love the Vikings and you love the Twins and you love coming to Minneapolis for fun and for vacation, or whether you live in the Twin Cities area and you work here, you go to school here, you have your clinics here, it doesn't make any difference. We're all Minnesotans and we're all in this together. And as such, we need to pull together to make this happen. So this is a one Minnesota Unified Command approach. It's also important to think of a plan because it is designed to prevent bad things from happening. If you think back to the ancient history of policing, the fundamental job of police is to prevent crime and disorder, not simply to react to it. This plan does both. This plan is set up to prevent bad things from happening and then to respond if they do happen. I think it is absolutely both proactive, it is preventative, and it is planful, and it is driven by that both and, that we are going to protect people's constitutional rights and we're going to protect people's property. This is not an either or for us in that case. Finally, I would just want to say once again, for those folks that are questioning whether we're going to have the resources, the answer is quite clearly yes. I can commit from the Department of Public Safety that our team is absolutely committed to protecting Minneapolis, protecting St. Paul. This is a metro area plan. It is not an either or once again there. But we have also reached out to our partners from greater Minnesota, from southern Minnesota, from the North Shore all the way down, and we have heard them say yes. From an early point where we didn't have very many people that were on that yes list to today, it is a sea change. And I expect to see in the Twin Cities, much as you saw during the RNC and during the Super Bowl, to see patches from all over the state of Minnesota. You're going to see uniforms of all kinds of different colors. You're going to see squad cars from all kinds of different places coming here together to say with one voice that we support the First Amendment and that we are going to protect the Twin Cities. As part of that plan, the state has been asked to provide Minnesota National Guard support. And at this time, I would ask General Mankey to come forward to speak to that issue.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm Major General Sean Mankey, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard. I'm here to tell you the Minnesota National Guard has been working on this team and will continue to be part of this team as we move forward. Our primary focus is to support the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul in ensuring the safety of our communities, preventing criminal activity, and safeguarding the peaceful expression of our First Amendment rights. The Minnesota National Guard will be an integral part of this team to make that happen. We have been actively coordinating and partnering with planning cells in these organizations for the last few months in order to move forward so we can synchronize our response. And under the Governor's executive order, we will provide National Guard soldiers and airmen to support law enforcement duties in our cities. Unlike last summer, the authorization to pre-stage National Guardsmen will provide us preparation and a more flexible and dynamic plan as we move forward. We have plans in place to meet the requests for both Minneapolis and St. Paul in supporting law enforcement efforts to maintain the peace. I realize the sight of soldiers in our communities is not a sight any of us want to see. However, this past year has been unprecedented. The Minnesota National Guard has been called to respond to civil unrest not only in Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, but also in our nation's capital. Additionally, we have supported the state through multiple COVID-19 efforts as this pandemic races through the country. All of this while still doing our federal mission, deploying thousands of soldiers all over the world. Given what the Guard has done this past year, it is my sincere hope that the people of our communities understand that we are not a threat, but we are here to provide security. There are over 500 Minnesota National Guardsmen who live within the communities directly affected by the destruction due to the civil unrest from last May and June. When we stand watch over your communities, we are standing watch over our communities, our families, our friends, and our coworkers. We are members of your communities. Our primary goal is to keep these communities safe. We thank you in advance for your support as we move through this. It is now my privilege to introduce Chief Frizzell.
Good afternoon. Again, it's an honor to serve with each and every one of you as we go forth and do great things to protect and serve the communities in which we've all raised our right hand, and protect and serve is a part of who we are. Our mission is to keep our system running whenever possible. The Metro Transit Police Department encompasses over 7+ counties, 85 communities, and we fully understand the transportation necessities of people that just want to go to work, that want to go home, or to just get from point A to point B. We understand as guardians of trust and accountability, we will make that happen with the partnerships that we currently have in place for this upcoming situation. We know that transit is a lifeline within our community, and the Met Council and the Metro Transit specifically take it extremely serious when it comes to providing for that safe and secure transferability of our folks in the communities to where they need to go, when they need to go. This is not our first rodeo. This partnership was well established, and we've learned from lessons of the past. We have provided transportation from everything from the aftermath of the 35W bridge collapse, North Side tornadoes, and the Super Bowl, as well as the civil unrest that unfolded last spring. So, as we go forward, we want to make sure that our employees, riders, and our critical infrastructure associated with the Metro Transit system is safe and secure during times of uncertainty. And it's with great respect and pride that I do it with the teammates that are before you today. For those that depend on transportation systems, we will work tirelessly to communicate any changes that may occur because of dynamic and/or developing situations. We will utilize social media, the web, rider alerts, operator safety net channels, and other ways familiar to our riders to ensure there's a clear chain of communication on what's happening within the transportation system that we're sworn to protect. Chief Ordondo.
I'd like to also just at this time ask if Chief Tyner from Minneapolis Fire Department would just say a few words about his department's operations during this. We know that last year, unfortunately, there were many fires and structures that were set ablaze. And so, Chief Tyner, if you have a few words.
Thank you. I'm Brian Tyner, Fire Chief of the Minneapolis Fire Department. We stand ready to respond to any emergencies that may come up as a part of the Derek Chauvin trials and any civil unrest that may happen. Our mission is to support all of these agencies by responding to fires and other emergencies as they may occur. We stand ready to do that. We have collaborated with each one of these agencies in the planning of this operation to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. Just like all of these gentlemen have stated, we have learned and studied the past to try to figure out what we can do better in the future. I think we have been able to identify that and put those in place. And so I would just like to take this opportunity to reassure the public that the fire department stands ready to respond to any type of emergency that may come up as a result of the trials or any civil unrest that may happen. Thank you.
So at this time, thank you so much for being here. We'd like to open up for questions for any of our officials here.